Hi and welcome to episode 40 of China Tools, a series of videos where I put woodworking tools from China to the test. My name is Dennis and I am from Hooked on Wood. And this was an amusing video because for this test I visited a friend of mine in Belgium and his name is Tom. Hi Tom, thanks for having me here. We know each other from Instagram and we have had some contact on Instagram and discovered that we have almost identical tools in our shop. In fact, one of the reasons I have an AUKTools router now is thanks to Tom, who told me about his experience with it.
Well, welcome to my workshop, Dennis. It's nice to have you here.
And one of the reasons I'm here is because I have a lovely product I want to show you. And you may remember my video about the Hongdui miter gauge, which is one of the best miter gauges you can buy in my opinion. And in this video I promised to search for a good fence to combine it with. And I tried different ones, but now I found one that I would like to show you. But because I have a format saw at home, I cannot demonstrate it. So it would be awesome if you could demonstrate it in your shop.
No problem. I remember you compared it with the Harvey MG36. I actually have the Harvey miter gauge and I love it. It's a very high quality miter gauge.
And good you have one, because I have something I would like to compare it with. Because although you can buy the fence separately, they also sell it as a complete combination. And I see some similarities, so it would be nice to take a closer look at that. First I want to show you this complete miter gauge from Enjoywood. It comes perfectly packed. And it's good to see that most of these products I receive nowadays are carefully packed, which is a significant improvement over the past. The fit and finish are very nice, and the fence is a telescope fence made from aluminum. And even the sides are nicely finished. So when you look at this package, it looks better than the price would suggest. This miter gauge costs around $140, including this telescope fence and flipstop. And you will be impressed the first time when you open the box. That does not make it an over-the-top built miter gauge, but I'm impressed what they can deliver for that $140 build-wise. When you want to use the miter gauge, you must first convince yourself the track are perfectly parallel to the saw blade. And you can do this by sliding a combination square in your miter track. Let it touch the tooth of the saw blade at one side. Slide the combination square to the other side and see if it touches the same tooth in the same manner. And when this is correct, we can check if your miter gauge is perpendicular to the saw blade. And when that is good, we can cut the workpiece and everything will be safe and square. And why I want to mention this is because when your miter track is not in line with your saw blade and you correct this with your miter gauge, your workpiece can slide over your saw blade and that will leave you with an inaccurate cut and in worst scenario with a kickback of your workpiece. So convince yourself first if your miter track aligns with your saw blade. In Tom's workshop everything is well organized and his Harvey table saw is perfectly tuned. And we first had to adjust the sliding bar to the miter track to check if the miter gauge was perfectly square. And this Enjoywood miter gauge uses some screws with a spring and a rounded end to adjust this bar. And turning these screws can change how strong the round tip should touch the miter track sides. And this works perfectly and the miter gauge slides smoothly and it is stable in your miter track. And now we can check if the miter gauge is square. And it is perfectly perpendicular to the table saw blade. However, there are no ways to adjust it, so when not 100% square, you have to work with some shims. The fence was also perfectly straight vertically. Here, however, are some screws to adjust this when necessary. Before I continue, I want to tell you something about the changes I made to my website. I redesigned it, but I also made it more transparent and added more information to it. It is easier to find my downloads when I have them available. And many viewers watch my China Tools ranking before buying something at Banggood. And I have more products than I made videos of, so I also decided to add these products to this ranking. I have written small reviews on my site where no video is available. And this way I can place more products on my site, so I hope it will make it even more interesting. Although I only add a small written review, my conclusion will be as balanced as with my video reviews. And coming weeks I will add more and more reviews this way to my site. So remember to check my site when you are in the market for something new for your workshop. The Enjoywood miter gauge has 7 positive stops, which means that they are easy to find and lock into place at these angles. And we checked most of them with my setup blocks, and all of these stops are very accurate. And to go one step further, we made a hexagon. And the hexagon consists of 12 miters. So if there is any deviation, it will be multiplied by 12. And we carefully glued all the pieces together, and the last element fitted perfectly. So we were very well capable of making very accurate miters. The fence flipstops do not meet the fence entirely. And this is not a problem in most cases, but a mitered cut will slightly go behind it. In the worst case scenario, lifts the flipstop, and then you will get inaccurate results. And we see this with most flipstops, which should be something to keep in mind. If you look a little bit closer at the miter gauge, we see the connection between the miter gauge and the fence is a bit simple, and reminds us that this is an affordable miter gauge. The flipstops look nice, and I like the look of the needle, but it does not stay in place when you use your flipstop. The fence has a fixed scale that started at 0, meaning you should place this miter gauge fence against your saw blade, and I do not think this is desirable. And if you cannot move your scale, you should be able to adjust your flipstops, and both are not possible. Luckily, there is an M6 thread in the end of the flipstops, so we could use a screw to set up the fence correctly without the saw blade touching the fence. Because there is a fixed scale on the fence, you can only use it on the left side of the saw blade. And when you want to use it on the right side of the saw blade, you should place another scale on it. The fence has a combined incremental and metric scale, which I don't think makes it clearer, and therefore I would recommend ordering a specific scale with it. The fence is a telescope design and has a reach of 120 centimeters, and this works perfectly, and I like how they designed this. But you should remember that you must also add a screw to make this accurate, and it's a shame they did not include something to cover this, but the solution like the screw is very straightforward. The fact that it is a telescope fence makes it compact enough when you do not need the extra length, and it is very useful when you want to cut longer pieces. Although there are some similarities with the Harvey MG36, there are more differences than similarities. The Harvey is an impressively overbuilt miter gauge, it's beautiful and every part is high quality. And with the Enjoywood miter gauge, they carefully choose how far they could stretch the quality part without making it too expensive. So the connection between miter gauge and fence is simple. The screws to tighten the flipstop and telescope fence are certainly not high-end, and how they implement the positive stops is basic, but it works fine. So if you compare this with a Harvey miter gauge, we see that it does not make sense to compare them. The Enjoywood is about making an affordable miter gauge that offers more than the price would suggest, and I think they succeeded in that task. It's a lovely looking practical miter gauge that is accurate and will satisfy the average woodworker. And at least in Europe, I'm not aware of a miter gauge in this budget that I would prefer over this Enjoywood. And this is my scoring card. Well, I hope you're still here at 8 minutes and 50 seconds, because one of the most asked questions is what is the material you use on your tabletop? And I can understand this question because it's a very nice material and it looks awesome. And also Tom uses this material and is very satisfied with it. It is what we know as full colored Black MDF, and it's different than Velcro mat, which is even denser, but it is also more affordable. And the next question is always, where can I buy it? And on my site I have a list of places where you can buy it. And please inform me when you know an address that I can add to this list. But Tom also sells these black MDF sheets in different sizes, including CNC cut dog holes. And the price is very attractive for such an accurate CNC cut tabletop. So this can be very interesting when you live in Belgium or near the Belgian border. And in the description of the video I will give information to contact Tom. In episode 18 I tested this Hongdui miter gauge, and I still think it's one of the best miter gauges you can buy. And in this episode I compare it with the Harvey MG36, which I had not seen before. Now I have seen it in real life. I have to be honest that it is a beautiful miter gauge, and it just looks and feels stunning. However, it's very heavy, too heavy in my opinion. So from a quality perspective, it's undoubtedly worth the money. But as I told you in that video, from a practical point of view, it offers only some basic features. And although a very nice micro adjustment stop, it does not have a decent scale. And although a high quality telescope fence, the reach is limited and you still have to use a ruler. So if I had to choose one mitre gauge, I would prefer one with more positive stops, and in this price range, at least as every degree, and one with more functionality. So my opinion did not change. I still believe that the Hongdui mitre gauge is one of the best mitre gauges out there. And for only $140 you get a lot of mitre gauges for the money. And it is not so overbuilt as the Harvey, but there is also nothing I think you should improve build-wise. It is perfectly balanced with high quality materials and lightweight enough to stay practical. But it comes without a fence, so I have searched for some time to find a fence that would match the quality of this Hongdui mitre gauge. And there are a lot of aluminum bars that you can attach, and they all fit well. But I wanted at least a telescope fence because that is what the Geshem and Harvey mitre gauges offer. And you can also buy the fence of this Enjoywood mitre gauge separately for $80. And that would make this combination of Hongdui mitre gauge and Enjoywood fence around $200. So although I think you can compare the Hongdui mitre gauge with every high-end mitre gauge in the market, that does not work for the fence. This is more of a price-friendly solution, but one that offers almost everything you want. And the point for improvements are relatively easy to solve. So when your budget is $200, you get a lovely combination here. Even when both parts are slightly different from a quality point of view. But the most critical part of a mitre gauge and fence is the mitre gauge itself. The fence creates the extra functionality of cutting pieces at the correct dimensions. And because of the telescope fence, this reach is more extended, but keeps the dimensions practical if you do not need this extra length. And I searched for these telescope fences on the internet, but I did not find one in this budget. And those who come close are very basic. So this Enjoywood fence is very budget friendly without many compromises. And it has every function the more expensive fences offer. And that is what makes me enthusiastic about this fence. So to summarize, for $80 I highly recommend this fence. It offers more than the price would suggest, and although not a luxury fence on all fronts, they choose the different parts wisely to keep the price interesting. And as a combination fence for the Hongdui mitre gauge, it fits and works perfectly and keeps the weight practical. And this is my scoring card. Well, that was the end of this video again. This will be the last video this year, so I wish everyone a wonderful Christmas and all the best for 2023. I look forward to seeing you again next year and reading all your comments. Thank you for watching, and we see each other next year.